Hi, you're here with Pixalf Studio and today we're going to break down the Aero Extracts logo animation. Let's take a look. At first glance, it may not be clear to the average viewer what's even going on. Aero Extracts is in the business of producing extracts from hemp, for medical purposes of course. The animation is divided into several stages. This is the appearance of the first image, where we see the cannabis bud. It opens up and grows in an interesting way. Then we zoom in, go to another species of conch and see the trichomes. These are the kind of protective hairs on the leaves of cannabis. After it goes to the next scene where we see them being processed. The animation is shown as if they're in a washing machine. After this scene there is golden sand, which we crush with 2 plates. And we get the extract. This is followed by a transition into the logo itself. The icon on the logo is the alchemical symbol of air. With this, the client wants to show that they are creating a quality and pure product. What does this tagline tell us? The process itself is shown in 4 steps, and the animation itself can be divided into 6. This is the appearance of the first scene, showing all 4 scenes. And the transition to the logo itself. Each logo animation has its own structure and logic to follow. Let's take a look at how this is implemented technically. Everything is animated using shapes. At the same time, the animation style is such that all lines have the same thickness. This helps to unify the different elements. The growth itself is implemented using the favorite trim path. By structure, it is divided into these parts. These are the main shapes, as well as additional growths. We also have circles like these, which are represented as trichomes. If we look at the contours of the shapes themselves and what is shown in the composition, we can see that the lines are slightly different from the original position. This is all because we have applied the bendio effect. This effect is more advanced from the usual bendit, as we can expand the scope of application. Here we can change the width ratio, which helps if the layer is clipped at the edges. For example, here during the appearance of this sprout we can see that we have these minimalistic leaves flying off. The basis for these leaves is taken from this part. Their animation is not complicated. Such parameters as position, scale and rotation are animated. The path of position has an arc shape. During the transition, the bud increases in scale and disappears from the screen. This is realized with the help of masks. All this bud is bound to a null object, which is modified by scale. And the mask itself repeats this rhombus shape. Since After Effects version 20, we no longer need to duplicate this alpha matte layer and apply it to each layer separately. We can select multiple layers and specify what we want the mask to be. As we move to the next scene, we see that the 3 circles are still in place. They are part of the second scene. If we look, here we have no binding to a null object and we can manipulate them separately. The rhombus itself, which is the frame, is animated using the path parametre. In every animation, every object, we use the graph editor. Except in very rare cases of animating interfaces or robotic movements, the appearance of the other growths is realized using trim path. Here we don't commit to any layers, we just animate by eye. Additional circles that fly in are also regular shapes. And are animated using standard parameters. Position and scale. To move on to the next scene, to make the hexagon perfectly round, we used a trick. We can draw a hexagon. Change its parameters a bit. And draw a circle on top of it. In order for us to transform into a perfect circle, we can convert this Bezier path object, put a key and change its curves this way. We clamp Ctrl and Alt and stretch roughly along the outline of this circle. We do this with all the points. We don't have to do it perfectly, the important thing is to repeat the approximate contour around this circle. Now using the graph editor, we can abruptly change from this shape to a circular shape. Crop the layer using the Ctrl and Shift key combination and crop the circle itself. Let's recolor the circle from blue to yellow. And now it will appear to be the same object while moving. That's the method we've applied here in this animation. The wave icon itself is bounded by this mask, which repeats the contour of the circle. And we can play with it. Zoom in and out of this animation to move on to the next scene. If we look frame by frame at the next transition, we can see that this circle flies down and forms this slide. This is where the usual morphing is used. We've used a line like this to connect these two different objects. All the elements here are drawn using shaping and no image rasterization is used. To show the inertia after this transition, we used elastic expression. And worked with each line individually to make the movement more lively. In this scene we have a triangle being drawn, which is transformed into lines. This is realized with the trim path, and the compression of this bump is animated using the path parameter as well, just like these underflows. If we look at these underflows, we can see that here we have not only path used, but also color change. We can put different colors in the shapes and we can anchor that with keys. This can be done with any shapes and even with gradients. In this scene we have a square that slams down to form the final icon. Here we do a flyout using a null object that controls all the other layers. And, of course, we use the graph editor. The rest of the text, so as not to take up too much attention, is animated using parameters like opacity. And with scale, where elastic expression is used. In order to create animations like this, we need to prepare the illustrations in advance. Because if we do it all on the fly, they will not lead to anything good. At best you will get a good result. But when the illustrations are already prepared and thought out, we can keep the style and all the ideas we want to realize. In doing so, we have variety in the icons. Here we can see that we have a rhombus used, which bounds the object. In the next scene it is already a hexagon, which we have emphasized with these lines. Next we have a circle, then a triangle, and finally a square. It was important to smuff not only these icons, but also these simple shapes. During the appearance of the final text of the logo, we used additional shapes to emphasize its shape. This, too, is done with a trim path. We drew lines like this and animated them. This helps to draw attention to the object and show that it's in charge here. Graph editor looks simple. We separated the main text for clean animation in Adobe Illustrator. Painted this text in different colors to identify where which layer is on the timeline. And animated it with mask shapes and regular masks. The whole logo is divided into logical objects, and they are divided very neatly. In general, in order for such animation to be professional, it is necessary to allocate certain timings for each scene. So that it was not too long, well, and not too fast. This can only be achieved through practice. In the end, we added all the necessary sounds to all the animations, worked with volume and added some audio effects. In the final we get an animation like this. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.